Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Monster Families. Today we're going to be taking a look at it. The skeletons. The skeletons are basic grunt-like warriors. They really don't have much going for them, or do they? Let's dive in. So the skeleton is a fierce undead warrior. Skeletons do not seek to consume the flesh of the living, but only extinguish the life of their victims. Skeletons are unrelenting in their goal, move faster than zombies, and have some spark of intelligence as demonstrated by their use of weapons. These bony undead have been observed wielding swords, clubs, bows, and even armor and shields, and are often equipped in the same armament in which they fell. Even more terrifying are the animated skeletal remains of expired magic wielders who prove that even the dead can wield the forces of magic. Now, the magic ones, those are the mages, but these specifically are, well, they're just regular skeleton warriors, like some random guy that died and got resurrected. Basically, like some necromancer came along and was like, rise from the dead, or whatever. I mean, they look almost identical to the ones that you're literally killing, like that you're resurrecting or whatever, creating as a necromancer. Very interesting fact, though, is that the ones that are created from the necromancer are not susceptible to undead damage. So, like Holy Bolt, which kills undead and absolutely wrecks skeletons, doesn't really do anything to necromancer minions, which suggests that necromancer minions are not actually resurrected souls, but just simply constructs, whereas these are actually resurrected souls. And ironically, like if a necromancer creates a corpse or a skeleton out of one of these, it's not actually an undead anymore. It's just a construct, right? Or at least that's how I kind of like see it, because it's kind of laughable. The necromancer seems to like to play with bones, essentially. Um, Skeletons, of course, are undead, and they're vulnerable to all the undead specific spells and abilities. You cannot lifesteal or mana leech from skeletons. Now, this is something that's really interesting and actually quite deadly, and why they are more than just simply grunt attack, units. Very similar to the corrupt rogues with the sword and shield, they really don't have much going for them. They're just slow moving, automatons that just simply attack you. However, when it comes to melee and range characters that rely on life and mana leech, you will often be at a disadvantage when fighting these. Melee specifically because it is a attrition. You go in, you fight them, you hit them, you deal damage, they hit you. They deal damage to you, and you slowly die as the ever-growing number of them seems to increase while your HP decreases at a very rapid rate. And more often than not, if you're a melee character, you kind of avoid skeletons because, well, you can't really life or mana leech from them. You can use life tap on them, which technically works, although you're not technically life leeching from them. Life tap is a different form of leech, which basically converts physical damage into healing, which is a whole nother thing. Now, some of the Bone Warriors have various types of elemental affinities. The Bone Warriors have a lightning or cold damage affinity. The Burning Dead, of course, are fire damage, judging by their name, and the Horrors have a chance to deal lightning damage. There are also a couple guest monsters, which are known as the Returned and the Bone Warrior, and these also have the ability to deal lightning and cold damage as well. It's never quite as simple as you would think. In most cases, when you think a monster is only dealing physical damage in Diablo 2, they're not. Most monsters, for some reason or another in Diablo 2, have these like added bonus chances of dealing like additional damage types, which is really quite interesting when you think about it, which makes them a little bit more useful than your average warrior because, well, now they're dealing out some type of elemental damage as well. However, I don't know if the elemental damage is enough if you were to revive them to be useful against other targets, but it's definitely enough to like smack you in the face when you have low lightning resistance and you get hit by a horror that's dishing out lightning damage. They are shield wielders, and they do have the ability to block up to 30% for horrors. And as you can see, 30% also in hell difficulty. So they do have a basic amount of block chance. The interesting thing here is that I actually built a character in one of the previous seasons. It's called an unblockable magic arrow Amazon that essentially uses the ability to convert all physical damage into magical damage and then bypass block chance, and it works, and it is very good. And you don't really realize how much block chance a lot of these monsters have until you get to the point where you are unblockable, and then you're like, oh my god, this is so good, I can't believe I've never done this before. because now you're just gonna bypass everything. Their immunities are primarily lightning. As you can see, the skeletons are lightning, returned or poison. The bone warriors are lightning and poison. The burning dead, as you would assume, are fire resistance and immunity. And then, of course, the horrors are also lightning. And if you take a look at the ones in Act 5, which are the guest monsters, they're also lightning and poison. They tend to be lightning immune, unless they have a specific immunity. Their resistances, they have rather low physical resistance for monsters in Hell difficulty. They have none in Nightmare and Normal. And even their Hell physical resistance is only 33%, when most monsters seem to have 50% or higher in Hell difficulty. Their magic resistance is all over the place. They either have 0 or they have a ton. The Bone Warriors and the Horrors have 70% magic resistance in Hell difficulty for some reason. And same thing here, the Bone Warriors as the Act 5 guest monsters have 70% magic resistance, which is a lot of magic resistance. Most monsters either have 0 magic resistance or very little at all, so it's surprising to see a monster with such high magic resistance. Their fire resistance is relatively poor unless you're dealing with the Burning Dead variety, which are immune to fire, or the Bone Warriors, which have a moderate amount of fire resistance. Cold resistance is almost non-existent in the majority of these cases. As you can see, they either have like 25% or 0. Lightning resistance tends to be one of the primary resistances for these, as you can see, with 3 being immune, and also 2 of them being 80% lightning resistant, even in Nightmare difficulty, or 60% lightning resistant in normal difficulty. Poison, they seem to all have high poison resistance, with a 50% poison in normal, 75% poison in Nightmare difficulty, and even some of them being immune to poison in Hell difficulty, with all of them being like 50 to 75% depending on the difficulty that they're in. The drain effectiveness is really one of the most important things to note here, though, is that they cannot be life leeched from, and this definitely makes them very deadly for any character that is relying on life leech as a way to survive. Their HP is pretty much like dead middle, like it's not very low and it's not very high. It's just okay. Here's an example of some of them right now. These are the Burning Dead that are in the sewers. As you can see, they have shields. They're definitely skeletons. They seem to have remnants of armor on them from their previous battles. And even in the old version of the game, they definitely are. They have this, like, unique sound effect. This skeleton, like, sound effect. And it's something that, like, is just iconic to me about the genre. Like, the game is just that very unique sound effect. A lot of people, like, don't really think about the sound effects as much as as you would think, but like they definitely have some unique sound effects. Now, as revives, they basically make very basic revives. I mean, they're nothing like too special. They're melee revive number like 33, like or whatever. Like they don't really have very much value other than the fact that they can do random elemental damage. One of the problems with them doing random elemental damage, though, is that, well, you don't really beef up random elemental damage when you revive monsters. So the percentage bonus that you're getting is enhanced damage, which only affects physical. So, like, for instance, you can see I currently have plus 190% if Mr. Dusty the Chinchilla would get out of the way. 190% damage increase. Well, that's only physical damage. So the elemental portion of their attacks is not going to get buffed up. They're okay warriors for revives. I don't necessarily think I go out of my way to get them at all. I would prefer the archers, to be honest, over the warriors, because the archers tend to be able to attack better from a distance and also obviously swarm targets easier, whereas the skeletons have a much more difficult time swarming because, well, you know, how can you swarm when every single space is taken up? Like, in this particular area, like, if my skeletal warriors try to go in here and attack these monsters, they will very quickly bottleneck, and only one skeletal warrior will be able to attack at a time. Whereas if I were to use the archers, on the other hand, and revive them, the archers could theoretically bypass that bottleneck, essentially, by all grouping up on the target and firing through the opening to dish out damage to the targets. So you end up with a much better, like, just monster type. Unfortunately, my monsters don't want to come with me anyway. course, this isn't really about the archers, so poopy, 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 poopy. There you go, poopy archers. This is really about the warriors themselves, right? Now, honestly, other than the implications that the melee characters suck at killing these things, there's really not a lot going on here. Like, there really isn't. They're one of the most basic type of monsters in the game. Now, they are paired up with Haradrim. In some places, you will find them paired up with Haradrim. Now, of course, those are a topic for another video, and we will cover those at some point. But the Haradrim need to be at least mentioned in the same vein. The Haradrim are basically called greater mummies. And the Haradrim have the ability to not only resurrect, but they also have the ability to heal skeletons. And these guys are often paired up with skeletons. Not always, but often. And when they are paired up with skeletons, well, in general, you kind of want to kill them first because, well, if you don't, well, they're just going to keep healing and resurrecting these guys over and over and over again. Now, these guys might not necessarily be too dangerous, but in large quantities in a small area, and especially being supported by one of these guys in the back, can be absolutely annoying as you kill them and then they just come right back to life. So definitely when these guys are tied together with the greater mummies, always make sure you kill the greater mummies first if you can, because they are just generally going to make your life a living hell. The first time you see skeletons tied together with a greater mummy is actually Radamant. So that's the quest that you go and you actually fight Radamant. The interesting thing is that when you kill Radamant, he drops a bunch of Fists of the Heavens with holy bolts shooting everywhere, which kills all the remaining skeletons that are around at that particular time period, as long as they get hit by the attack. And like the whole crazy thing about that is that Radamant is, I guess, according to the storyline, he's basically creating these creatures. And, you know, we'll probably have to do a highlight on Radamant for, like, his video, for the Greater Mummy video, because, of course, he's a super unique of that particular category. Are there any super unique skeletons? I don't think so. I don't remember there being any super unique skeletons, but maybe you guys down in the comments can let me know if you know of any super unique skeleton warriors. Of course, there are other types of skeletons, like, for instance, there are skeleton archers and there are skeleton mages, and we're going to be going over those next. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals joining. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And as always, keep watching.